All right, welcome back to Factor Theory Live. I am Steve Crawford, and it is 7:03, December 29th, 2022, getting close to 2023, and I am here with a couple of really cool guys, Mr. Rowe, who is a host here at this station, as well as one of our more popular hosts here at the station, Mr. Robert D. Morningstar. And I'm going to bring up a little thing here about Robert. Okay, so this is on Graham's. Do you write for Graham Hancock's website there, Robert?
Occasionally, that was the first. That's the most important one I have written from. We've been corresponding for about 25 years, and he invited me to write up an article for his website, and that's it. It's a very beautiful story. I waited years. I waited 25 years to write that story. So.
Oh, that's wild. Just going to read a little bit about this for some people who don't know how accomplished Robert is. Robert D. Morningstar is a civilian intelligence analyst and psychotherapist in New York City. He is a specialist in photo interpretation, analysis, and computer imaging. He graduated from Power Memorial Academy in New York. Morningstar was a New York State Regent Scholar from 67 to 72 and received a degree in psychology from Fordham University. He's an expert in the Chinese language, history, and martial arts. He's acknowledged as a master of Yang family Tai Chi, Tai Chi Chuan?
Chuan.
Chuan, okay, by the Hong Kong Tai Chi Masters Association, and has taught at Oberlin College for the City University of New York, Hunter College, as well as the International Center for Disabled, and he is a licensed pilot and instrument ground instructor with 23 years flying experience. Okay, let's get into that for a minute.
That's an old bio.
Yeah, because there's way more that you could add. But let's get into the flying part now. When you ever been, and I want to get back to your story. I remember you were in New York. You saw this thing coming back.
Right.
But while you were in the air, have you ever seen anything while you were in the air?
Yeah. I was passed by two egg-shaped UFOs back in 1990. I was doing a three-point cross-country for my license. I got it in 1990. And I was leaving MacArthur Airport in Long Island and heading west. I was near Northport. And in Northport, there's a big power plant with some gigantic stacks. I mean, a couple of 100 feet high, the smokestacks. So I'm approaching that, and I look to my left, and in the morning haze, it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. And in the morning haze, I saw two objects low at my 10 o'clock. So I called air traffic control to inform them, because in this area where I was flying, I was under direct air traffic control from MacArthur Airport, and it extends beyond the airport for a couple of miles. So anybody who flies there has to be in contact with them and have a transponder, which is basically your own self-generated radar signal that the airplane will put out. The signal, instead of waiting for the radar from the airport to hit the plane and bounce back, the airplane is sending out a signal, and it's got a tag and an identification code. So I'm under that positive control, as it's called. So I call up MacArthur Airport and I said, MacArthur Airport, Cessna such and such, Juliet Hotel is just south of Northport. I have some traffic at my 10 o'clock. And he said, well, we don't see it. I got the word back. I'll take out the formalities. We don't see them on our radar screen. And they're rising, And I'm doing two fingers like this for the people who can see it. We're going to have a video of this. So I see two dots, white dots, rising, climbing steadily, evenly, uniform speed. And I'm going to intersect them. They're coming up, and they're going to cross my flight path. And so I just kept my eye on them. I told air traffic control that they were rising and they were going to pass my nose. And when they passed my nose, the nose of my plane and my nose and my head, they went by straight across. I was crossing the T, and I'm doing my fingers like this to show you how uniform. The two of them were in unison, and they just never separated. It looked to me like a glider when it tows another airplane. It's a steady distance because of the cable, but there was no cable. There were no wings. There was no props or jets. Nothing except a teeny weeny little dome on each of them. And I couldn't figure out how anybody with a head like ours could stick his head out to look through the dome. Anyway, so I crossed the T on these two things, and they went on, and I went on, and I crossed. And here's the most remarkable thing architecturally or aerodynamically as a pilot that I can tell you. When they passed by me, they were egg-shaped, right? Oval-shaped.
Mhm.
And when they passed by me, they went on over Long Island Sound. And so I crossed behind them, and I saw them by the tail. And they were the same oval shape from the tail as they were from the profile, which is really odd. And you know what I thought of? It was so beautiful. I thought of the hulls of two America's Cup yachts without the keels, laid one on the other, deck to deck. That's the
Right.
idea shape that I had. The beauty of an America's Cup yacht, the curvature of it, but without the keel. If you took two of them and put them deck to deck, it would give you an idea of the shape. So when they passed me, they accelerated and they took off, and they were heading in the direction of Bridgeport. And all these many years later, I guess the best way for me to describe them would be with the word tic-tac. The word used by the Navy pilot for what he saw.
That's wild.
Commander Fravor.
Right. Yes.
You describe them as tic-tacs. Well, I describe them as eggs or lozenges. They were rounded, absolutely beautiful. And air traffic control couldn't pick them up at all, even when they were right at my altitude and crossing. And they said, well, sometimes, sometimes we don't pick up some of the traffic at lower altitudes, but they were at my altitude, and they crossed. After they passed me, I would say that they were passing me at about 200 miles an hour. Not really that fast, pretty fast, but not that fast. And they crossed in front of my plane as I was closing on their flight path to within 150 feet. But I felt no turbulence. I had no problem with the engines. Nothing affected the electronics. But when they passed me and were over the Long Island Sound, they crossed Long Island Sound in 7 seconds. So it means they accelerated from about 200 miles an hour to about 1,500. Now, here's the curious thing. When I lined up where I intercepted them, it was from Republic Airport with a beeline to Bridgeport. And what's at Bridgeport? Sikorsky Aviation. And I suspected that might have been one of our secret projects, and that they were ferrying the craft from Republic Airport, where Grumman used to be headquartered. That was in Republic Airport, and beeline to Sikorsky Airport, which is where Sikorsky Aviation and Pratt & Whitney, all of them are in that area. It's a big military industrial complex area.
Right.
But let me get back to the Central Park one that I was describing before, because that one is super cool. So this time I'll use a remote control. It'll be in black. But it was a very psychic moment. The thing came in like this, right? It stopped right over a place called Tavern on the Green. It stopped like that, right over Tavern on the Green. Like, imagine a 727 airliner was going to crash nose first right into the earth at this angle and just stopped. Right? And the restaurant is under here with the lights, Tavern on the Green.
Okay.
And then it went like this, whoop, right? And then it went like this, sideways. It came in nose first, tilted nose up, and then flew away sideways.
That's trippy.
Unbelievable. 2 seconds, and it was gone over the east side skyline. But here's the wild part. There were 2 windows in the front and 2 windows in the back. They were large rectangular windows with rounded corners. One set of windows was glaring with a brilliant blue light. The other set of windows was glaring with a brilliant amber light. The amber light was soothing, the blue light was glaring, and as it came in and stopped, I heard this voice say, "Don't look at the blue lights. Only just look at the amber lights." And that's what I did. I took my eyes off the blue lights and I looked at the amber lights. And as I looked at the amber lights, the craft went like this, just like that, and gone. That's only one of many, many encounters, UFOs. I've had UFO encounters all my life. And it seems like I'm one of those groups of people. Certain families are tagged.
That's
My first
insane to me.
traumatic experience
Wow.
was with an alien encounter.
I've never seen anything that I can remember up close like that. I think I really, at this point in time, I think I'd love to, and I wouldn't consider it an abduction if they took me either. They'd be saving me from this.
Yeah, true.
You know, like wow. But how long? What was the entire duration of that incident?
Of this the Central
From you
Park.
sitting there and seeing it
Yeah.
come.
Okay, I'll show you. It was this long. About 7 seconds.
6 seconds. Yeah,
6 seconds.
7
Yeah.
seconds. Wow.
Yeah.
And so you got the feeling that if you perhaps had looked at the blue lights, you may have been abducted?
No, not at all. I just heard the voice tell me, "Don't look at the blue lights. Only look at the amber lights," as if it was protecting me from something. Like,
Right, and that's what I'm wondering. Is that some sort of choice we kind of have? And you were given, most people look at the blue and they get abducted, but
Yeah.
something helped you out and said, no, 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 turn this way. So you did, and then it took off. That's freaky.
Well, I have had several experiences, direct experiences across. I'm 74 years old. That's a lot of time, but across my lifespan, I have had many experiences with extraterrestrials. But I was not free to speak about them publicly because of the stigma, and Big Brother and all of those guys don't
Right.
want to tell each other what's going on and how many races are going on. I've had encounters. I stopped an abduction of my girlfriend from my bedside in Fire Island in Labor Day of 1978, and I experienced the alien mind scan as I negotiated with this alien, like how to get the hell out of this situation.
Wait, okay, that's the story. Okay, actually, before we get into that story, that's the story I want to go to. But Ro, do you have anything to add to what Robert's been talking about?
Well, it reminds me of, one time when I was with some friends. We went to the Gathering Tribes in New Mexico back in 1995. Yeah, Tres Piedras with the Rainbow Gathering there. And on our way, we were out in the New Mexico desert. And it just happened, I remember it was on June 29th. It just happened to be when the shuttle Atlantis was supposed to dock with the Russian Mir space station. And we said, hey, let's see if we can see it. And so we're out in the middle of the desert, and we saw the docking. We had, some pretty good optical equipment. This was before I worked for TRW, which I shortly afterwards, I got a job with the space and defense industry where I saw all kinds of interesting things. But then after we watched this docking, there were 3 triangular craft that were, at first they were little points of light way up where the docking was, and then they came way down to where we could see that these things were some sort of triangular craft. They weren't really low, but they were low enough where those aren't airplanes, and they were doing maneuvers with each other, and then they would go far away and go back up near the Mir shuttle docking. And we sat there, and I remember specifically, I was with 2 other people, a girl and a guy, and I said, we're all each other's witnesses, right? We're watching this happen. I mean, we're just seeing these other things, because we knew that the shuttle was going to dock, but we didn't know what the heck these other craft were that were flying back and forth. And we figured they were some sort of military hour technology, but we couldn't be sure. I mean, so that's I remember that one.
What year was that, dude?
1995. Now, I remember because we were going to the Rainbow Gathering, and it was in Tres Piedras, New Mexico, and that's where the gathering was, and we were on our way.
I was at a movie with my ex-wife in Niagara Falls, looking towards that. Actually, we were looking in a different direction, but I saw exactly what it looked like take the Russians out of it, but there were several ships up there. Actually, I was thinking it was more like 7, but they were that high up, so they weren't up close. And the maneuvers they were doing were flipping me out.
Yeah,
We
I mean,
got
they were
back to our
moving around.
campsite and I looked up and they're still doing this. And I had a beer in my hand. So these girls are walking by and I'm like, look up there. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? They looked at my beer and then just started laughing, thinking I was drunk and wouldn't look up. And I'm like, somebody please look up. There's something trippy going on in the sky. It was freaking me out. And I think it was because I got chills when you just described that. I believe that happens to a lot of people.
And one other thing I'll say, because when I was living in Amsterdam, my friends ridiculed me because one day I was in an apartment staying with some folks, and I stood there looking at this pulsating object in the sky that was really low. And if you really looked at it, it's not a star. It's changing colors and possibly even changing shapes, like some sort of plasma, pulsating thing. And I'm sitting there trying to point it out to people, and they're laughing at me like, dude, it's just a star. And I'm like, it's not a star. And of course, they're not interested. They're doing their own thing. And I'm like fascinated. And then I remember back, it was maybe 2010 or something. I was looking at trying to find out what it was on the internet, and somebody posted a video on YouTube called My Morning Star. Interestingly enough.
Yeah.
And it was a video of that, and it was this woman in I guess she was in the UK somewhere, and she's like, oh, it comes every once in a while, and here it's back again. I wanted to show you, this is my morning star, and sometimes it goes away, but it always comes back. And that was like, oh my goodness, that's it. And I don't know what it was. It was a big pulsing object of light. It would go red, blue, purple, or yellow, and then look like it get bigger and smaller. And it was low enough, like where if you were behind some buildings or something, you might not see it. It was that low on the horizon over Amsterdam for, I would say, for about a week, and then it was gone.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, and nobody would pay any attention to it when I'd say, look, it's still there. There it is. Now, dude, it's a star.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's the conditioning. That shows you the degree of mind control that was exercised on the Dutch to keep them out of our consciousness. They used every possible ridicule, persecution, fear-mongering.
Non-player characters.
Maybe it was projecting something that didn't work on me, and I'm like, I can see you.
Oh, that is true. They can what is the word? Not shield, but they shroud themselves.
Cloaking
Certain people's vibrations. Certain people are allowed to see them,
right?
And other people are not. The two people.
There could be 3 people standing there, and only one will see them.
Yeah, but you know what? The same thing is true about rainbows. Think about this: the rainbow is in the sky, but it can only be perceived by people who are at about a 43-degree angle. I think it's that specific. It's 43 or 45, and the people who have that angle will see the rainbow, and people who are just a couple of feet off the angle will not see the rainbow. And I think UFOs exercise a similar effect on human perception. They can turn off some of our senses by sabotage. When one gets close to an extraterrestrial, the energetic electrical field of the extraterrestrial will have effects on our neurology.
Like a scalar projection of some sort.
Right? They said, last night I was watching an amazing interview with a fellow named Steve Bouchard, who was a Canadian abductee. Contactee, I would call him.
He lives here in my city.
Oh yeah, they mentioned St. Catharines in his
He's been on my
interview
show
last night.
Yeah.
Well, that guy talked for about an hour and a half, and he gave more information than I've ever seen anybody give regarding not just his abduction, because it was kind of voluntary. They asked him to go along, and he said, I don't feel I was abducted. I went along. But he gave so many details of the dialogue with the Greys that he had. Once when he was 4 years old, he and his father were taken, and then 2 more times at least during his adult lifetime, he was taken along with the band. And I would recommend it. Steve Bouchard, Bouchard.
Was that on The Fifth Kind? Paul
Yeah,
Wallace.
that's the one. That's
Yeah,
exactly.
Paul's been on my show too. He's great as well.
Excellent.
You should check out his
Excellent.
books if you haven't.
Well, I had my first traumatic experience at the age of 3. I was living in the deep south in my grandfather's house, and I was swinging on a bench swing that he had on his porch, and it was night. And there was a window and a room next to me in darkness, and the other side of the room there was a door that was open to a hallway that had light shining through it. So I'm sitting there, and I'm a totally happy, innocent, normal baby, and 3.5 years old. I'm cognizant. I can go around by myself. I walk, I talk, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, again, peripheral vision. My peripheral vision picked up something, and it was best described as I saw something that was black within the black. For example, Stephen, you're sitting there in the darkness. Now, if something blacker than the black side of your screen came in, and I saw that blackness, and it started to walk across, I think caught my eye, startled me, as a matter of fact. And I looked at it, and the way it walked was not human. Definitely not human. It was skulking, is the word.
Right.
Hunched over, no neck. And it stopped. When it got into the doorway, it was silhouetted by the light. And I saw the whole outline of the creature. And at that moment, he was going across like this, looking at the other side of the room. And then he just stopped. And then he did this. Like that.
It's the boogeyman.
And looked at me. Man, I screamed bloody murder. I mean, baby adrenaline. Baby adrenaline just, wah!
Yeah.
Everybody comes running. And like, what's the matter with it? There's something in the room. They all run into the room. There's nothing in the room, and they come back. And, oh, baby, you didn't see anything. You just. They can't say I had a nightmare because I was wide awake.
Right.
They couldn't even say that. But oh no, there was nothing in the room. And you know what? My baby logic said to me, "No, there was something in the room." But he went right down through the floor, and he's under the house right now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
When
I would even
when
call
you're
it baby logic. Go ahead, Rose. Sorry.
when you're a child, children are the closest thing there is to recently from the creator. They just come in from the beyond, entering this realm, and so they're still in touch with a lot of things. Their senses still pick up things. And I remember this used to be repetitive as well. Now with the shadow person I saw, I didn't have any fear, but sometimes, and I remember a specific incident. It was like an afternoon, like a Sunday afternoon or something, when it's real quiet in the house. It's daylight outside, and I was left in my mother's bedroom on her bed. I'm just sitting there, and out of the closet, literally walking out through the closet, through the walls, were these not silhouettes. They were gray forms. They didn't have any faces that I could. Maybe they had eyes. I don't know, but they didn't have any clothes. It was all gray, and these things would just walk. Just normal. They would be like, just not like a human would walk, but real slow, sort of methodically walking, like they were in a daze or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be 4 or 5, maybe 6 of these things, and they would walk out from the closet across the room, scaring the crap out of me. They wouldn't notice me though, and I would just be frozen in terror, panic, looking at these things. I'm like 3 or 4 years old, and they would just walk through the walls. And I would see these things would appear in different places, but always during like maybe the daytime or the early evening, which was a weird oxymoron to me now, because it was like I shouldn't be scared of these things that didn't notice me or interact with me in any way, but I was. But the shadow, which did interact with me, I wasn't afraid of. And so both of these incidences would repeat throughout my childhood. And I used to call them zombies. And I would be going to sleep at night. Please don't come. Please don't come. Please don't come.
Oh, really? Oh, it's sad. Yeah, that's terrifying.
Even to this day, I don't go to bed till 5 in the morning. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Robert.
Me too. Me too. I don't go to bed till 5 in the morning,
Yeah,
waiting for it to show up at 3. You know,
exactly.
they say that people like us, who have that habit, have had an experience that happened at a particular time, and we
Uh,
find it very difficult to sleep during those hours for anticipation
Yes.
of another
exactly.
visitation and the desire to be the greeting party rather than the one
I
that's
would
greeting.
be sitting there at my window. I was living in this small apartment by myself, basically a room with a bathroom and a small kitchen. And I'm looking out the window and I'm seeing this thing. Like I lived in Niagara Falls, Ontario at the time, and it's over Thoroldstone Road. It looks like it's basically over the McDonald's there, which is about a 10-minute walk from where, actually maybe more like a 5-minute walk from where I am. And it just sat there all night. I even called the police station and they said they don't know what it is, but they've been getting calls about it. And I remember, I think it was 2 days after that incident. I think it was maybe an hour it was there, and then it took off. And this was from 4 to 5 in the morning. And I was like, I'm not going to sleep because this thing's not getting me. And I'd stay up as soon as the sun would come up. That's when I would crash. But a couple days later, I had a girlfriend staying over. She had gone to the bathroom. The only lights I had were Christmas lights around my ceiling to illuminate the room.
Mhm.
And so she gets up, leaves the bed, and I open my eyes, and all I see is total blackness. And I can't move anything but my head. It feels like something's literally sitting on my chest with their legs over my arms or something. And so I'm trying to move my head and I'm blinking my eyes, trying to get something to be able to see something. And I hear a voice going, whoa, 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 hey, relax. I start being able to move my shoulders. All of a sudden, boom, the lights come on. I'm laying there. I can see the lights. My girlfriend comes back into the room and goes, were you just in the bathroom behind me? She was like, I couldn't move. It felt like there was something there. And I was like, holy crap. That was one incident.
Mhm.
Shortly after that, years before I could go to sleep before 3 o'clock in the morning. And every once in a while now, well, what am I saying? Most of the time, it's 5 a.m. I finally lay down
You
to
know,
go.
for me, one of the issues when I was a child of sleeping was if I went to sleep on my stomach and my head was against the pillow to the point where I could hear or feel my heart beating, then things would come to like the heartbeat would act as some sort of like mechanism to draw something
Ah, it's
toward
wild. I've
me.
never thought of that.
So I would make sure later on, like, and I used to chant a mantra to it, please don't come, please. And sometimes though, and as I got older, it was weird because now I remember I would go, please come, please come. I wanted them to come back.
Right.
When I was no longer afraid after a long enough time, and I was like, hey, where you guys at?
I've had similar reactions. It's very interesting that you mentioned this about the heartbeat, Mr. Rowe, because I've been teaching remote viewing courses online, webinars, month-long courses, since June. And in the work that I've been researching and teaching, it turns out that the CIA did a lot of work in remote viewing
Yes.
and this interdimensional communication. And they found one of the theories that they came up with is that the heartbeat is creating a wave, and the
Yes.
wave passes, it propagates through the aorta. And when you're doing when you're in a relaxed state and doing a particular kind of breathing and meditation, the wave goes down and hits the femoral artery where it's blocked, not really blocked, but it's going into another narrower uh, blood vessel, and that there's a wave that comes back, and that when this wave, the wave of the heartbeat pulsing down encounters the other wave, and they get into a particular synchronization,
Mhm.
that's the condition under which the remote viewing can happen optimally, or psychic events and telepathy
I
happen.
think that's also an astral gate. Um, that it allows easier I call it traversing through the crowd. There's
Mhm.
this like feeling of a lot of people watching even though you're not, when you project into that astral realm, I think that rhythm helps maybe that helps facilitate that as well. Maybe it has something to do with the heart chakra.
Well, breath control and controlling the rhythm of the heart and uh, resonance, getting your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit to start to resonate at a particular frequency and harmony is one of the keys to
Cymatics.
Frequencies.
Yes, cymatics is. I think cymatics may be the answer to maybe our bodies are standing waves, sound waves that are aggregating these molecules to keep our identity.
Well, if we're made of water and vibrations like from frequencies affect water just natively, then imagine what they would do to the water that's combined with us. Like the electromagnetic fog and stuff. And it's possible that the right frequencies, the right harmonies, like from a cathode rail cathedral and a large pipe organ on 432 hertz, projecting the right tones might act as harmonics to heal us.
Yeah, and keep us young.
Yeah.
We use that 432 and 528 frequency in the meditations that we do to develop the remote viewing and lucid dreaming. Well, the course that I taught really, wow, polished off my skills. And I started having just relentless series of premonitory visions, I would say, rather than dreams, because they were so vivid. And there was one night, it was just incredible. I like to sleep in the dark. So I wear a sleeping mask because
same here, and earplugs.
Well, I want to hear what's approaching. When things go bumpy at night, I want to hear the bump before they get here. So I sleep under a mask, and I'm in the middle of the second seminar, webinar on remote viewing, and so I'm really at a high level of concentration and vibration. All of a sudden, out of the blackness, I see the most brilliant light imaginable appears. A white light appears, and it was just so bright that even in my trance, let's call it that, in my trance, I shielded. I put my hands over the mask and over my eyes and dropped my head because it was just so bright that I said, you're too bright. I said, you're too bright. You're hurting my eyes. And then I peeked for a moment between my fingers. I put down the mask and peeked between my fingers, and I saw it dim. And this incredible luminosity just dimmed itself and got small and turned into a white pearl UFO, a sphere. It came down into my room, and it started to go around my bed like on a circuit. But it was being chased by 5 black pearls. 5 black negative UFOs were chasing the bright white positive UFO as it was circling around my bed, and I think transmitting information to me. As the other, it was like the Star Wars scene where the TIE fighters are chasing the X-wing, destroy the star, the Death Star, kind of like that kind of action. But the energy of the black things was giving energy to the white things. So I think there was a very deep message in there. But the next scene was really interesting because it taught me a lesson. I saw that my bed was surrounded by water, and I saw a shark in the water, and I had to get out of my bed, so I had to go in the water. The shark attacked me, and I punched him in the nose, and he went off. And all of a sudden, I looked, and I had a black glove on. And then when he came the second time, I ran my hand down to pop him in the nose, but he bit my hand. And I could feel the tiger, maybe a tiger shark, but the shark was biting the glove, but it wasn't penetrating. I said, the glove's got me. So I had him by the snout, and I said, the shark is going like on my hand. And I said, yeah, the shark has me, but I have the shark too. So I said, what am I going to do? I'm going to drag this shark out of the water. So I dragged him. My hand is holding him. The glove's protecting me. I grab him by the snout. I do a judo throw, and I threw the shark out of the water onto the land, and he's flopping. I said, now I'm going to deal with you. And I woke up short. There was a third dream, but it's relentless, the symbolism is relentless. Coming when you open up the well of the collective unconscious starts to speak to you
Yeah.
And it uses these symbols from your own experience to try to get the message to you.
Robert, I wanted to ask you, did you have any opinion on what you thought of the ectoplasmic things that are around in my house?
I thought you have the best collection of uh, of orbs, ectoplasm, ghosts, and Mr. Rowe. The most shocking one to me is the emanation that comes out of the mirror. It comes out of the top of the
Yes.
triangle frame in the mirror.
Yes.
Because as that thing shoots across the room, there's also a sound that's recorded. It's aspiration. It's a breath of some sort. It goes,
Yes,
"Huh."
that's the one that it's like
Oh.
or something, and
It goes shuzha. It's
it
a breath. And the other one that I was telling Stephen about that just made me jump out of my seat is the one where the big thing, the body, I call it the body, drops out of the ceiling.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just
It's
watching.
gigantic. It's a huge thing. But the thing I pointed out to Stephen was that I was listening to your radio in that clip, and I think the radio is describing a murder. In the
You know,
background, the radio is describing a murder, and boom, the body falls out of the ceiling.
A
It
trippy ectoplasm looking thing.
Yeah.
it made me feel like I jumped out of my skin. That's the expression. I'm watching all the other videos of the orbs exploring your apartment and coming up slowly over the chair and doing all of those and extremely unusual ones. But when the phantom dropped out of the ceiling, I jumped out of my skin. I said, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
My seat was lifted out of my chair and reminded me of.
These are activated in the infrared spectrum,
Yeah.
and the motion detector brings them up. The only other thing that I remember, well, there was back in like it's the turn of the century. There's something called Dysonin and dye, and it was used to create this filter that filters out certain spectrums of light. And it was used to train people to kind of see auric emanations and things that weren't there. And then back in, let's say, the 70s, when they were first perfecting night vision, the old red night vision that the military had in the red spectrum would pick up things that weren't there. They had complaints from soldiers from Vietnam that were using this new night vision and the Russians, the same thing, that would see things that aren't there, and they would collectively see the same thing. So they're like, uh-oh. And that's one of the reasons they went to the green spectrum, because it doesn't pick up the quote unquote ghosts. And I wonder if some of these orbs and things may be natural, like the flora fauna kind of stuff that's just in the infrared and in the plasma, sort of not quite physical realm. Or some people think that that's a way that spirits get around, and how they manifest in our realm is the easiest form to take when they're traveling around is this orb shape. But I've seen points of light and things that flash and blink and move. So I don't know if I wouldn't think they're all the same quote unquote thing. I would think these are multiple quote unquote species, for lack of a better definition, of something that's existing within this other spectrum that's not quite physical.
Photonic entities, I believe that there are entities which are self-contained, intelligent, and made of light. When I grew up in the 50s, I always watched a program called Science Fiction Theater. And there's one episode about a scientist who's trying to replicate the atmosphere of Venus and exposing it to radiation similar to sunlight hitting Venus, and studying the possibility of life, germinating on planet Venus. But what happens is, it's not plant life. All of a sudden, these two luminosities appear inside the jar, and the luminosities are intelligent, and they grow stronger and stronger until they migrate out of the jar. But what they depicted in that science fiction theater looks like the stuff that's moving through your living room. Your kitchen seems to be the wormhole, or the opening, the door. They always start over there. What intrigues me is what trips the motion sensor, because the motion sensor turns on the camera before the things become visible. That's a
Mhm.
fascinating thing. So
Well, I think there's like there's some buffer, so it has like it's got like a kind of like the way a police body cam works.
mhm.
So it buffers a certain point. Um, and I think that it actually, it trips the motion sensor the moment motion is detected. So yeah,
But the motion sensor tripped by sound? That's the
no,
key. No?
no, only motion, and all the lights were off, so it's only tripped by infrared.
Yeah, so they have to be
Magnetic
hot.
fields.
Those things have to be warm for the infrared to pick them up in the first place. I had an interesting experience at the American Museum of Natural History. I went there for an exhibition, and when I arrived there, they had a demonstration of a FLIR camera, infrared uh, camera that was rendering all the images according to their temperature. And I
Yeah,
walked up, and everybody was a rosy pink color.
thermal cams. Yeah,
Yeah, thermal cam, that's what it was. Everybody was kind of like a yellowish to a pink color. I walked in and I was white. And the technician said, I've never seen anything like that before. It's registering your skin temperature to be 122 degrees. I
yeah. I
had
think
no
they're picking something else up there.
it was picking up something, but I had been a little late for the show, or the opening of the show, so I'd run the last block to the entrance, and I'm wondering if that run had
That
really
might
been
have, yeah.
122 was pretty hot.
There are reports of people that have the self-driving Teslas,
Mhm.
and I've seen a few videos where like they're parked in a cemetery
Mhm.
and they're looking and the camera's picking up people that aren't there, and they're like, wait, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's wild.
yeah, there was one where not only did the camera, well, there were two separate ones. One, the camera picked up some people in the cemetery that they couldn't see with the naked eye, and then another video they could see people behind them, like, but the rear view camera didn't show the real people there. Wait a minute, those people aren't reflecting in the camera.
Yeah, but you could see them in the mirror.
You could see, well, they could see them with the naked eye. I don't know about the mirror, but they were,
Oh,
like,
they could
why
see them
can't,
with the naked eye, but not the
yeah,
camera.
why can't they see in the camera? So it was the inverse of, yeah. And then the other ones, the Tesla would see, visions of people in the cemetery that weren't there, which is kind of interesting. So maybe we're on the cusp of technology is becoming sophisticated enough to start to pick up things that previously went unnoticed because of our limitations in sensing.
Yeah. On a side note, since you mentioned electric car, have we heard anything about the performance of electric cars during this blizzard? I'm curious to see what they did, and how they performed compared to the internal combustion engine.
I don't think they perform very well at all. I
Yeah,
really
I think
don't. I mean,
they.
there's technology that we haven't used that I think electric cars or that kind of thing could actually be beneficial, but that technology is still classified. That's the
Yep.
I mean, I worked at TRW Space and Defense, and we had something the size of a shoebox powered by a cube of silver. A sugar cube size of silver is the fuel. And that thing would power a city block for I don't know how long, but that technology exists. There's things that have been hidden with the patents, just like the 100 mile per gallon carburetor type stuff. So I think that even though they're trying to disrupt supply lines and take us off oil and everything else, they know that there is an alternative. Now, how fast that would take to set up the infrastructure, I don't know. But the current state of electric vehicles is not at any by any means prepared to take on any workload. I think outside of like what little cars are doing now, and even that's not very efficient.
Yeah.
And the weight that you put on a Tesla truck, I mean, you have to recharge over and over, and it takes a lot to charge those things up. And the batteries to make those things, they have to create these big pools of poison, basically.
I, I'm totally against it. I'm a devotee of internal combustion engine. It's really what raised humanity. In the last century, think about it. Think about what life was like without cars and airplanes and diesel. So we got to stop these maniacs.
Yeah, and it's all of our cars don't put out as much as one volcano eruption.
Yep.
One
the other
good.
part, about 10 years ago, I saw a demonstration of hydrogen fuel cell. Hydrogen fuel cell cars with the wheels on it, and there was the power supply, and it looked like a surfboard. And it said that they were going to be sealed, and you can't get into them. There's no maintenance, and it was going to be an R&R operation if it failed. You just went in, they slid out the surfboard with the wheels and would slide another one in, but not much has come of it. But 2 weeks ago, I got news that the NIP, the National Ignition Project, the title which always bothers me.
Yeah.
the fusion project had some success. They concentrated some lasers on a particular type of gold and diamond, and they blasted it with a certain amount of energy, and they got 1/3 more energy out of it than the investment. So they said that was the first example of success in fusion, but that it's going to take 30 years or 2050 before they can make it practical.
Where it's actually already, they have something that they could use for practical applications for that, but we're not going to see it. They're using it, but we're not going to see it for, like you said, at least 30 years, because they're just admitting this now. And we all know they're years ahead of us as far as technology.
I don't know. I'm thinking that, with all of this great reset crap that they've been trying to pull, trying to poison everybody with these, shots and the DNA augmentation and disruption of the supply lines and all of that stuff. I think in the back of my little mind, I think that they've actually, to put it in a nutshell, it's like, let's try to get the world to go along with this horrible plan, and we'll really push them. And if they go along with it, great, we win. But just in case something goes squirrely, they have a backup plan. They've got, something set up where I think that they could move to an alternative fuel, that they could create a utopia if they wanted to. That we're not like at a point where all is lost. And one of the main things that's probably standing in our way is our own ignorance and just humanity's own lack of will and gumption and drive to do things and make things so and make it happen, and the continuation of depending on someone else, the government or the companies, to give us what we need. But I think with the right foundations, I believe that we're at a level, if we were given access to the certain types of things that humanity has created in the past that maybe been classified from the patents, that we could probably pick up the pieces and make a better world in short order, shorter than we think. Mm-hmm. That's my own personal opinion. Maybe I'm hopeful Henry here.
Well, 1951, the Invention Suppression Act. So, they put that into play basically after Tesla died, and they got all of his papers and saw what he was capable of coming up on his own. And there was that guy by the last name of Carr, who figured out how to build an anti-gravity vehicle. They had, you could come up with all this stuff now. Like I said, they've probably already got it, but even Star Trek with transporters and what do they call those things? You just go Earl Grey tea hot and, replicators. All of that stuff, I believe, is possible, but if you try to invent it or try to get it out to the public, because of that act from 1951, you're going to be either killed or thrown in jail.
I want to ask Mr. Rowe before we run out of time, what do you think is the alien agenda, Mr. Rowe?
Well, from what it looks like is there's some type of force that is attempting to overtake humanity by its stealth mechanism, and it appears that there is a alien predator species existing on a parallel timesheet that is trying to enter into this dimension and use the nanotechnology to facilitate some sort of possession. In a nutshell.
Yeah, I think that's a very eloquent and succinct way of expressing it. And I concur. I concur that, you know who warned us about this? The head of Falun Gong in 1999 was interviewed by Time Magazine. And he said, they asked him, what do you think is responsible for all the chaos on the world, in the world today? He said, aliens, extraterrestrials came here over 100 years ago, and they've been trying to change human nature through the use of highly advanced electronic devices. In 1999, he was predicting what we've been talking about, the hijacking of human consciousness and the alteration of human nature through electronic means, and also this invasion of the real body snatchers. The real invasion of the body snatchers is the vaccine.
I believe that, absolutely. Yeah. I hear people out there say, well, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but no, I am an anti-vaxxer because this world is not an honorable place. Yeah. So
I was going through video that I shot last year, just exactly 1 year ago. And what happened was I live next door to the person who initiated this forced mandatory vaccination program in New York, was trying to get the bill passed. And we had street demonstrations right here, and I shot them. And I really am proud of New Yorkers. New Yorkers were the vanguard of fighting forced vaccination. We won a lot of cases in court over the course of the last year, eventually ruling that forced vaccinations are unconstitutional. So I came across some videos of that, and people were very, very assertive. You know what I have? It's historic video. I got a meeting, a joint venture between MAGA and BLM, joined together in front of my building to protest my neighbor, the assemblywoman, who was responsible for the act. And I lucked out. I got window video of all the speakers, and they stayed out there a bunch of hours and gave her a piece of our mind.
Right on.
That's trippy. And don't mean to cut things short, but we're almost out of time. And I haven't had a chance yet to tell people to come down to we're number 15 on TalkStream Live. So thanks to everybody listening on there. Come down to www.revolution.radio, and you can click the nav bar. We could use your donations. That would be fantastic. If you like this show or you want to check out other shows, go to the archives. It's free. You can check out the schedule to see when your favorite show is going to be on. And speaking of that, Michael, Robert, when is your show air? Two of them.
My show, I have two programs. The Morning Star Report on Sunday from 3 to 5 p.m. every Sunday, Christmas included. Never take a day off. So,
nice. That's how we got.
But it was lucky, actually. It was lucky that this mix-up happened last Sunday. But I'm very happy that Stephen and I and Mr. Rowe got to do this. And again, I want to thank Mr. Rowe and everybody at Revolution Radio for making it possible to have freedom of speech within our reach and amplifying it. So
absolutely.
Mondays I'm on at 10 o'clock, 10 to 12, and that's more esoteric. Sunday.
And that's Studio B?
On Studio B on Monday and Studio A on Sundays.
And Rowe, when's yours? Real quick.
Mondays and Tuesdays, 1 p.m. Pacific, Studio A, and then next on Studio B. But I'm going to go ahead and replay this show.
Awesome. I'll get a chance to hear it. Have a great night, everybody. Be back next week with Dave
Good night
Schrader.
and Happy New Year.
You too.
Yeah, you too.
See you next year.